My name is Leslie Enway, and I'm a school psychologist in the Vail School District. I have my doctorate in psychology, though I like to say that I remain an educator at heart. And one of my favorite topics of all is to talk about mindfulness. So one of my daughters first introduced me to mindfulness about 15 years ago. She was going through some really rough times in her high school years, and we had tried a lot of the traditional talk therapy and medication routes, and she actually stumbled across mindfulness and shared it with me, and she got some wonderful benefits from mindfulness, actually was able to get off medications. And at that time I started dabbling in mindfulness, and I remained a dabbler in mindfulness for quite a while. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I actually started to dive into the research. I am a psychologist, so I do like to look at research and statistics. I actually conducted a little of my own research on mindfulness and really started to incorporate mindfulness more into my life, more as a way of life. And started doing some of my own trainings on mindfulness. So if I have 15 minutes to talk to you today on mindfulness, where do I really want to focus? Well, it's not the research. So I really want to focus more on mindfulness as a practical tool, a tool that is simple, that you can take with you anywhere, that really anybody can do, any age, any developmental level. It's something you can just pull out of your pocket and use, whether you're in a parking lot, whether you're home, you can use it just about anywhere. So let me start my screen share with you. Okay. So I think the best place to start is with a really good definition of what mindfulness is. I'm sure you have heard things floating around about what it is. Jon Kabat-Zinn and Thich Nhat Hanh actually both have some beautiful definitions of mindfulness. I'm not going to go into both of them, but you can look up their definitions. What they really boil down to is compassionate and intentional awareness. In other words, the practice of paying attention without feeling the need to constantly judge. That definition is loaded. So we need to pull that apart. There's really three critical components within that definition. So the first one is intentional awareness. So bringing our awareness to the present moment. That really is the foundation of mindfulness. So can it be meditation? Absolutely, it can be. That's probably one of the most commonly practiced mindfulness practices. Can it be a spiritual practice? I actually get this asked really often. It absolutely can be a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be. It's really how you apply it to your own life. Can it just be a pause, a breath before I fill in the blank, before I talk to my boss, before I do a training, before I eat this wonderful meal? Yes, absolutely. Intentional awareness mindfulness can be brought to a conversation, and should be brought to a conversation, I would argue. No phone out. You're not in your head thinking, what do I need to make for dinner tonight? Or what am I going to say next in the conversation? Instead, you are 100% focus, eye contact, and you're listening. And that's mindfulness. So intentional awareness can really be brought to anything. You can mindfully eat, you can mindfully walk, can be brought to an object. What does this object feel like in my hand? What is its texture? What's its color? What's its weight? So, and then it really is more of a way of life versus an isolated practice, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it is a practice. So just like if I were to learn a new language, I wouldn't expect to go to one class and be able to, in Spanish, and go run over to Spain and speak Spanish fluently. The same thing with mindfulness. It does take practice. Even though we can incorporate some really simple concepts right away, the more we do it, the more benefits we see from it. So our brains are on information overload. on a regular basis in our society. And when we couple that with, we spend a lot of our mental energy being caught up on this wheel here, this wheel. We are on the wheel of the past or the wheel of the future frequently. 80% of our mental energy is actually caught up in that. And that is not ruminating about, that is not thinking of pleasant events that happened in the past. That's typically either bad events that happen that tend to go around and around in your mind, or why did I do that? Why did I say that? I wish I would have done that differently. The same thing with the future. So planning is wonderful. Setting goals is wonderful, but it's when we are turning to the what ifs. What if I don't finish everything I need to do? I don't know how I'm going to finish all that by the end of the week. What if I don't get this done by this time? So it's the future worry about events that we get caught up in those. So mindfulness is stopping that wheel, being able to get off the wheel and bringing our thoughts into the present. So we're often on autopilot, and that's because we're caught in that wheel. So if you're ever driving somewhere and you find all of a sudden that you were just on the road, but all of a sudden you're there and you don't remember getting there, it's because you were caught in the wheel. And the third component, and the component that I have really focused on more recently, I would arguably say it was missing from my practice early on, is that it needs to be a non-judgmental practice. And by non-judgment, it really means just acceptance. It's acceptance of the current moment. It's acceptance of the situation. It's acceptance in the present moment, but it's also acceptance of yourself. It's no self-criticism, no blaming, no judging of the people around you, of your family members, of really the people in your life. And that can be a difficult place to get to. So I was working, I'm going to give you a story. I was working with a high school student. We had really gotten her to an excellent place. She was a lot of trauma in her background. It was very difficult for her. We had to do some grounding activities that we will talk about in a little bit to get her to a place where she could sit and really focus her attention and create some intentional awareness. But she told me she still wasn't finding any benefit from the practice. So when we broke it down, she shared with me that the thoughts going through her mind at that time were, I really suck at this. I don't think I'm getting any better. I don't think I probably ever will. Nothing has really ever worked for me to calm me down. Everyone else does this better than I do. So what we did is we worked on her changing those critical statements when they would pop up to self-affirming statements. And so we changed those statements to, in this moment, I am happy. In this moment, I am brave. In this moment, I'm confident. I'm at peace. Whatever you need in that moment, you can change it to that. And the difference in her was just night and day. And I'm really happy to say that she has gone on, she's graduated, and she continues to incorporate mindfulness as a daily part of her life. So before we move on to that, all three of those components are critical. So I just want to do a little visual with you just to recap that. So if I asked you, okay, why don't you write a note to a friend? What two things would you likely tell me that you needed? You would likely tell me you needed paper and a pen. So the paper is the self-awareness. Your pen is your practice. Yes, you do need those, but what is the third component? You need your hand. You need to be able to, your hand needs to be able to push the pen around the paper. So just like writing a note to a friend, you need all three components. Similarly, you need all three components for successful practice of meditation. Two without the other, and your practice is not going to be nearly as beneficial. Okay, so there's all three components are critical. So for some of us, we can jump right into a an intentional awareness process because our emotions are not heightened. We're in the area of our brain, our cortex, that we can focus and we can have some intentional awareness. But if you have someone whose emotions are very heightened, if they have experienced some past trauma and they are kind of in a constant state of hypervigilance, maybe someone's having a panic attack, or you have children who are throwing a temper tantrum, you cannot jump straight into breath. And to ask them to take 10 breaths or to try and focus, you really, really doesn't go very far. So by starting with grounding, what you're doing is you're actually reconnecting the mind with the body. So you're bringing them out of that survival mode, the brainstem area of the brain, and bringing them back up so they can access the cortex. And then you can have some of that focused intentional awareness. So one way to do this is with your 5 senses. So using all of your 5 senses, or sometimes just one of your 5 senses, you can bring your body back into your mind. So you can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Tell me 5 things that you see right now. Well, I see a bird. I see a tree. I'm outside. Tell me 4 things you hear. Show me 3 things you can touch. This has to be tactile. This is not feelings. This is tactile. And for some kids, tactile is what they need. They need to tap, they need to touch. And so maybe that's all you focus on. Or maybe you just show them a picture. You show them a picture. Tell me 6 things in this picture that you really notice. You can do 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. That's one way to ground. And that leads me to the next one. Another really good way to ground and to bring that emotional level down is with finger holds. So each of our 5 fingers are aligned with a certain emotion. You can see the thumb is aligned with worries, the index finger with fear, the middle finger with anger, the ring finger with sadness, and pinky with nervousness. By grasping with your other hand a finger and holding it firmly for a minimum of 2 minutes, you will find that those emotions abate. So this can actually be practiced to bring emotions down prior to practicing an awareness, an intentional awareness practice, or it can be done simultaneously. I actually have some students who like to do them both at the same time. So if sometimes with a small child, you may need to hold the finger for them, which is totally fine. And you can hold you can rotate the fingers, or you can hold one the entire time. If that works, whatever works for you. So once we've got that emotional level down, we can go into a foundational mindfulness practice. Again, your focused attention can be on anything. If you choose to just sit and bring your awareness to the present, you can mindfully color. It really can be on almost anything. But the breath awareness is a foundational practice of mindfulness. If this is all you ever did, you would see benefits. If you started sprinkling this throughout your day, you would see a lot more benefits. So breath awareness is simply that. It's just becoming aware of your breath. You don't need to deepen your breath at all. Deepening your breath is a good practice. But for breath awareness, you don't. It's just, and you can say this out loud. You can say it in your head. I'm aware of my in-breath. I'm breathing in. And I'm aware of my out-breath. I'm breathing out. I'm aware of my in-breath. I'm aware of my out-breath. And that simple practice, done in a spirit of acceptance and no judgment, it brings our minds to the present. It gets it off the wheel. And you can practice for a length of time that feels right to you, as long as you remain in that state of focused concentration and awareness and no judgment. So your mind is not wandering to comparison and, man, I'm getting terrible at this, and self-criticism. It may only be 30 seconds in the beginning. It may be a minute. 3 to 5 minutes is where research shows that the benefits start to really kick in. If you can do the 3 to 5 minutes multiple times through the day, even better. If you can take it up to 10 minutes, even better. And then you can deepen your practice. So you can deepen it just by, I'm breathing in calm and peace and ease, and I'm breathing out tension and stress and worry and fear. And you can feel that release as you breathe out. So you breathe in, and again, you can say this out loud. You can say it to yourself. I'm breathing in calm. I'm breathing out tension. Breathing in calm. Breathing out worry. And practice for a length of time that feels right to you again and allows you to stay in that state of the concentrated awareness and no judgment. So those are just some very fundamental practices of mindfulness, of grounding, and a good definition that kind of lays the groundwork for you for mindfulness. So to recap, we've got 3 essential components to mindfulness practice. Remember, the pen and the paper in the hand, all 3. We need all 3 parts to have a good practice. We need to practice. We need intentional awareness, and we need it to be non-judgmental. So some grounding techniques for the heightened emotions: use your 5 senses, or use one of your 5 senses, and the finger holds. And the 2 basic, very basic breathing techniques, just the awareness of the in and the out breath, and then breathing in the calm and the peace and breathing out the tension. So I hope that you were able to get some techniques out of this. If you would like further information about this, or if you would like to see any further trainings, feel free to contact me. You can contact me at anwayl@valeschooldistrict.org, or Leslie Anway at leslieanway@email.arizona.edu. And I thank you for spending your time with me today.